Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I've been out for a little bit, but today I have a special one for you guys. Today we are going over 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. And I have a little story to tie into this verse, but I'll get to that. And so the verse goes as follows. Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? Now, what does it mean to be unequally yoked together? He is talking about relationships. When you're a follower of God, when you're a Christian, you don't want to get into a relationship that someone's not on the same spiritual level as you. For someone that may not believe in God, or someone that believes in God doesn't put faith or any works into it. And when that happens, let's say you do date the person, right? It also says in Matthew, a house divided together cannot stand. If the spiritual levels are not leveled together, if they're like this or whatever, the house is not going to stand. It's just going to crumble. It's going to be more and more problems, and then God's going to eventually separate you guys. Because that person, girl or boy, was not meant for you. And you have to be patient for God to work with you. And then once you reach a certain point with him or whatever, he will provide you the one to date in a relationship. Someone that is on the same spiritual level as you. Someone that loves and fears God the same way you do. Now, why am I going over this verse? Because I had a little problem on Sunday. I went out to eat. There was this girl that was a waitress. I found her pretty. And it so happened to be that her mom was my waitress. And I wanted to talk to her. I talked to the mom. And, eventually I got the number. She looked at me from afar. And she wrote her number on a piece of paper and her name and her mom gave it to me. And I was so happy because, the verse that went over through my mind was, God is a God of peace, not a God of confusion. He doesn't provide confusion to things that are from him. That's from the enemy. And this was so easy, no confusion at all. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. No way. Did I actually get a girl's number, right? Because if you know me, you know how many times I've been rejected by girls. It's way up there in the double digits. But I have no shame in that because every time I got rejected by a girl, that's just God protecting you. Until you get rejected by a girl, that's God protecting you from an unequally yoked relationship. That's God protecting you from a house to crumble down on your heads. So I went home, texted the number. It was going okay at first, and then it started to pick up. And my friend was on a FaceTime with me, and he said, yo, ask for her Instagram. I gotta answer him. I follow it. 2 minutes later, I get blocked. I get blocked on Instagram. I get blocked on messages. I'm like, what just happened? Why did I just get blocked? And, I was very hard on myself that night, Sunday night, because I was so confused on what just happened. You see, if it's confusion, it's not from God, If it provides confusion, that wasn't from God, And I'm like, no way, she just blocked me because maybe I thought I was ugly or I'm undeserving or whatever. I was being very hard on myself. I didn't even feel like praying that night, and I pray all the time. And I didn't even feel like praying that night, but I did. And the next day, I talked to my pastor about it. I talked to my mom about it. I talked to my friend at Missional Ministries, Daniel, and said the same thing. She was unequally yoked with you. God is gonna provide someone for you at the right time. And you can't really run away from it. It would be you guys will just click. There'll be no confusion at all. She'll be in the same spiritual level as you, and it'll just happen like out of thin air. So I don't think it's because I was maybe not good looking to her or whatever. I think it's because I make videos teaching the gospel, preaching the gospel. Because as soon as she saw my Instagram, she blocked me. The only thing that's on my Instagram is Christianity stuff. That's the only thing I talk about and post on my Instagram. My first 2 posts are just random pictures, but ever since then, Christian videos. That's what I feel like I was called for. And there's a verse I also wanted to share about ministries. It's 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12 to 16. Oh, I did that. What just happened? Okay. Let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word and conduct and love and spirit and faith and purity. Till I come, give attention to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Do not neglect the gift that is in you, which was given to you by prophecy with the laying on of the hands of the eldership. Meditate on these things. Give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all. Take heed to yourself, to the doctrine. Continue in them, for in doing this you will save both yourself and those who hear you. Those few verses right there is the reason why I do this. Because, that verse really motivated me to actually make videos preaching the gospel. The videos may not be perfect. They may be too long, but as long as I'm preaching the gospel and what I'm saying right, and people are listening, that's what matters. Preaching and talking about God, that's what matters at the end of the day. And so that night, I was really butthurt. I was sad. I'm not gonna be embarrassed by saying this. I felt horrible, so bad. I lost some sleep, and I had college at like 9 a.m. But I wanted to go over a couple verses. And when we deal with these things, these little jads that come at you, God is always there. He's always listening. And when that happens, God wants you to turn to him. Psalm 46:1 says, God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. He's always there for you. He's always there for you when you get into trouble. And that day, I got into trouble. I got rejected by a girl for the 25th time. I don't even know. And, I really didn't talk to God about it. And we must seek God first. We must let God walk the waters first before we do. And that's something I did not do. I kind of rushed into that. As soon as I prayed to God, I'm like, oh my God, I have to talk to her. Don't do that. I learned my lesson. And also other verses that help, when you're struggling in those troubles. Psalm chapter 20, verse 1. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. God will answer you when you're in distress, when you're in trouble. He will talk to you. And for me, how he talked to me, the next morning, I take the bus to Middlesex and back. I had such a strong urge to read the book of Hebrews. That was the next book I was on. I read all 13 chapters and it took me 2.5 hours. I read it on the bus to the college. I read at the bus stop and the bus back to college. Or back home. And what the book of Hebrews taught me was a lot of things, especially chapter 11, chapter 12. It talks about Moses in the Red Sea, Daniel with the lion, talks about Samson, it talks about Abraham, all these things. And I feel like God was actually talking to me. He was saying, you see these prophets or these people, from the Old Testament, when things came up to them, like troubles came up to them, they had faith. And I provided a way for them. God gave Moses the power to part the Red Sea. God gave Samson his strength one last time to destroy the whole army. I forgot what army it was, I'm sorry. So the whole army in one building, when he was chained together, when Delilah manipulated him. Daniel the lion didn't attack Daniel in the cage. And also some other references too, you know. David had faith in God and killed Goliath, who was like a 10, 11 foot giant, and killed him with a little rope string thing and a rock. He made a slingshot and killed Goliath. And no one there that witnessed it could think that anyone could kill Goliath. And he killed Goliath because, you know why? He had faith. And those are just a few examples. And that's what the book of Hebrews taught, 11 and 12. And I feel like God was speaking to me saying, you know, this is such that, you know, when these problems come up, it wasn't a big problem, but when these problems come up, you know, have faith in me, have trust in me, still believe in me, and he will provide a way for you. And, you know, I know my issue wasn't really serious. It lasted like a day. I was sad for like a day and that was it. But when you guys struggle through things, you know, God is always there, you know, and he wants you to have faith, trust in him, pray to him, and he will always provide a way for you. He will always provide for you when you're suffering, because that's how loving and caring God is. Although we're undeserving for it, that's how merciful he is and how graceful he is. Because he loves us so much that he'll supply us with things that we need in time, if we believe in and have faith in him. Another verse I want to go over is Psalm 121, 1-8, verse 1-8. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. God is always watching and protecting us at all times. When we go through problems, when Satan attacks us, he's there. When we get rejected by a girl, or we get fired from a job, or just something big happens to us mentally, God is always there. You know, it says, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. It comes from God, you know. Help is provided from God. No man can help you as much as God can. God will supply your minds. He will purify your hearts and minds. He will strengthen you, and he will keep you pushing. He'll keep you going, because that's just who God is. And my last verse I want to go over is my first video verse, Philippians chapter 4, 6-7. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. When you go through these troubles, like my trouble, for example, when I got rejected by that girl, very kind of harshly, you know, make it known to God. God, this is what I feel right now. I may not feel love. I feel very hurt, Lord. I need your help. I need your light. And God will provide that for you. He will speak to you. He helped me out. As soon as I fell asleep the next day, he helped me out. He helped me read the whole book of Hebrews. And it's not a short book. And he spoke to me, and now I'm good. I'm not hurt anymore, you know. It happened, you know, because I'm not hurt anymore because I know that she was unequally yoked for me. And I know that God will provide someone way more than what I could pray for, you know, because that's who God is. That's how loving he is to those who have faith and trust in him. So that's what I wanted to go over today. Not just so much about unequally yoked, like in Corinthians, but also going over verses that may supply you or that may help you and guide you